ready for offline anyway. Because I don't really trust the Wi-Fi here. It always
And then they just changed something a month ago, so I don't.
you know how to go in and make it like available for offline, right?
I haven't done it.
You go right here, you're in the OneDrive.
Yeah.
You go right here and you hit the three dots.
Okay, and it just leaves everything loaded.
You hit it, make available offline.
Okay.
Yeah, so like if you want to do like all of your annotations, if you do all that, and you have it available offline, your annotations and everything will stay on there. It took me a little bit to figure that out.
When the older guys go fast. I mean, older. I said older. Every time I see them, I'm like, oh man, I'm getting old. And they're like, you young guys.
I got some bottles of water if we need to. Okay.
It's pretty slow right now. Let's get land markets doing pretty well. We're still moving around. We are?
Yes, I got coffee for you.
Okay. You know where everybody
Works for the job.
That's the only
That's the first time we ever had.
cookies and coffee.
have everybody here. Yep. Yeah, they just walked off.
I just rolled my eyes. We did a refundable review. Right there getting coffee.
Okay, I'll wait.
No, here's the Chi-Tech free. Good, thank you. Everything's good now.
Is Mr. Gilbert in there?
We're missing a colleague.
Back online.
Yeah, I don't think so. We had technology from this century. We'd be in good shape. We have such a more technology. I want to come to your 2 o'clock public works meeting. Maybe not. I said, yeah.
Alrighty. technology has been fixed. I'm sure the crisis is not averted, but we will try and proceed as planned.
I guess it's back to me. Good morning again.
Good morning again.
Given this type of application, I think what I want to do is be sure that, Mr. Chair, that when I conclude 2 more questions, I reserve a right to come back in the board session here as follow-up. One question for you. Why is it you identify the useful life of the facility as 10 years?
That,
Page 48, by the way.
I know. I simply wanted to get back and make sure I did not speak out of my hat more than facts dictate. And facts dictate that both the applicant and Mr. Stillwell confirmed that is simply an assumption that was made both in the 2019 application and today.
I would probably challenge you that if any industrial looking to locate in a proposed industrial park would not be looking at a 10-year useful and economic life of an asset. So I don't think it's a reasonable assumption. It's stated. I'll move on from that. We talk about utilities, and there is a letter stating that although there is water, potable water, and sanitary sewer in the adjacent area, there's no statement as to available capacity because, again, you haven't provided any detail. And I understand the comment. It said that concurrency is typically resolved at the point of permitting.
Yes.
But I will tell you, I've been on this commission for a little over 2 years. And what I'm typically used to seeing, maybe not mandated by statute requirement or procedure, is that when applicants come forward, they come forward with a well-conceived and thought-out plan, particularly to the end use. So here, what you're presenting is a conceptual plan for an economic development area, for an industrial and or commercial park that meets the goals and objectives of the county, but there are many things that you haven't addressed. And so my question is, why not?
There is no why not. In fact, what we did by proposing the closed loop system for, as has been referred to by the board, the elephant in the room, was to be responsive to what was discussed both at the workshop and since then, to try to mitigate. And as Mr. Stillwell said, if with the additional line sewer, since the grant was provided principally for this use, if we had a typical subdivision, and even at 1 unit per acre, we'd be using far more than is projected here for what people were projecting as the elephant in the room.
Okay, I can't even, just from my perspective, I don't have a background in data centers. And in fact, as we continue to focus on data centers, one of the things we're seeing is you provided no information, so I'm not going to be able to address today anything related to the viability, the positive aspects or negative of a data center. All I can look at is the application in front of me. And we continue to come back to data centers, so this is obviously front of mind. So I've touched on concurrency, and I understand that you're not going to address it or you're not prepared to address it until, in fact, you would get into a permitting period of time.
Yes, sir.
But there are other issues that have been addressed, some brought up by my colleague, that are critical in any kind of industrial application, particularly if it's adjacent to a residential area. We think of water is critical here, of course, is one of our resources. We think of air and air emissions. We think of those things that are particularly nuisances, which would be noise in particular. I don't know, because it hasn't been presented, what particular specifications and requirements there are in terms of measuring noise either at 3 feet in a free field from the building edge itself or at the property line and during the daylight hours and during the evening hours. Now, I know those are issues of technical detail design, but again, they're not really even addressed in your in your discussion here. So what I'm struggling with is this. You are proposing to the county that you would rezone this area for industrial. And it would be, all the uses permitted in Tier 2 and Tier 1 would be interchangeable, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you haven't provided any specificity related to those uses and what it is that we would be seeing, other than at some point in the future, and this is my last point. My assumption, I'd like you to clarify it on the record, is when those particular end users come forward, that you will be coming back forward into the process that is utilized by the county in a public and transparent process with the PDC and the BOCC and get approval for each of those applicants.
Those would be permitted in accordance with the county's plan, LDC, and permitting standards.
Okay, that didn't quite answer my question because
It de-
I'm not totally
it
familiar with
depen-
each one of those.
It depends upon what the use would be and then where we would be coming in. The point of the sub area is what is permitted and then what is excluded. And then within that, we would be looking at, for example, those things that are permitted. Let's just say the multifamily housing. We would be looking at that as a straight permitting type review, site plan, building permit, prop share, those sorts of things.
Okay. I just want to let you know that I'm not against and I'm not negative towards economic development or an industrial park per se. What I want to be able to assure is that, and I will ask the question later of council and of staff, because as you know, we can't speak to them prior to this meeting. I want to understand what the procedure or protocol is when we identify specific, and when you identify specific end users, whether it be data centers, data collection systems, or other commercial or industrial facilities, that those applicants come forward and address the issues that directly impact, the resources of the county and directly impact the residents, because you are adjoining a residential area. So I understood.
Okay, there's so many square feet of commercial. There's no end users for those right now. It's a 20 to 25-year project. So, the county's down here investing thousands of dollars into an industrial park. They have no end user. Mm-hmm. But they know or see the need for economic diversity. I'm sorry for interjecting. Thank you.
No, that's not an unreasonable statement, Mr. Stillwell. And it's probably difficult to project, but I'm sure you've done some checking and some sampling in the industry. I would have to believe that there is some interest in not only this site but in the one in Inverness and in other areas. Marketing plan. I mean, I would assume y'all have a pretty aggressive marketing program, laying in wait in the event that this is approved and moves forward. Is that fair?
I would assume as a commercial owner, they would be looking for potential end users.
I'm going to reserve some time later too, but that's all I really want to say right now, David.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask a follow-up?
Hang on, let's give somebody that hasn't had an opportunity. Mr. Facemeyer?
Just a couple quick questions. Slide 34 had a nice rendering of potentially what the site would look like, half a dozen or more data centers. Very nice slide. How many, if this application were to be approved and we have potentially 1,300 plus acres, how many of these data centers in different configurations could fit on this site?
And again, that's purely conceptual.
My opinion is it's a lot. And that leads to my next question. Is there a plan for decommissioning or redevelopment at the end of the life cycle for for these data centers?
There would be for any use as it expires. Because obviously, as the owner of the property, we would want to be able to use it as long as we have fee ownership.
There's many other large industrial-type installations prior to approval require some kind of decommissioning plan, and we haven't discussed that today, so that's of a concern to me. Just a comment.
Ms. Murphy?
I pretty much concur with the other commissioners. I'm very concerned about heavy industry impacting the residents in the area. Also, the environmental issues that this could bring up and wildlife. You know, how is this going to affect wildlife that's there?
Please hold the applause. Thank you.
And again, those are issues that are typically addressed at the permitting level. So,
Mr. Gilbert?
Yeah, I'm going to switch topics just for a hot sec. I love when applicants use the words affordable workforce housing. Do you know what the AMI is, or the area median income?
I don't, but I will also point out that I thought we switched from the traditional affordable housing to the multifamily. I will say I have done work under Live Local. If I remember correctly, and I stand to be corrected, are we within the Tampa Pinellas base for the AMI?
Oh, well, I was looking at slide 29 that said change the density from 8 to 12, only to achieve better affordable workforce housing.
But we're not but we are not invoking Live Local. We have discussed it. The idea in mind being a multifamily would be traditionally more consistent with affordability. And again, that's without invoking LLA because we're not. That's typically a multifamily 40% share under the statute.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scherer, did you have your follow-up?
I do. I'll try to keep it quick. I am hung up not just on the specifics of this application, but something that you've alluded is embedded in it, and that is that if the proposed comp plan amendment would be approved, that the applicant would not be required to come forward through this public process for any approved uses. I'm going to alert you that I'm going to follow up on that question because I need to really understand what that means, but I'm just replaying your words back to you. And we need to address that. The other question I had, and it's related, will each individual industrial applicant be required to get its own concurrency, or will utilities be handled at the development level?
As I understand it, concurrency is when the permitting process occurs. So presumably, it would be for each actual project.
Okay, so each project would be required to come forward through its permitting process and address and establish concurrency at that point.
X number of trips come from Y use. Z number of trips come from A use. Each one is going to have its own.
And did I read correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the developer is committing to fund any upgrades required to establish potable water and or sanitary sewer concurrency?
Yes.
That was a commitment,
Yes.
or that is a commitment?
That is a commitment.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a follow-up? Mr. Barmez?
I want to just touch on your closed loop. Am I on? Can you hear me better now? Perfect. On your closed loop system, how is that a guarantee that that system's going to be implemented on this project without an end user?
It's a condition that we have offered up to.
Where?
In response to staff reports, which as far as we're concerned, if it's part of the sub-area text, we're fine with.
But it's in our package. And it specifically
As I
states-
understand, we responded and everything we responded to by the filing date, and Ms. Katu actually quoted from it, so yes.
So without an end user, you're telling me that you would put in a closed loop system on this application just because?
If it is for a data center, precisely because I sat through a several-hour workshop, I have seen comments, we have spoken internally, and we decided, you know what, let's take that off the table, we'll put that into text. We're fine with that.
So you know what the evaporation rate is on a closed loop system for 20,000 or 20 megawatts, which is 1/3 of what you're requesting in here?
I do not, sir.
So how will we get to reclaim water? Where's the reclaimed water going to come? 100,000 gallons a day. If we had 100,000 gallons of reclaimed water today, we wouldn't be in a water shortage that this county's in.
Sir, what I am saying is, in effect, to the extent it's recycle and recovery, it is in effect like a purple pipe. It is a recovered use. If we have to, over time, supplement it, we supplement it, but it's certainly a dramatic reduction from the original 100 to 125. And for what it's worth, the reason that we went with the 100, we could have gone a little lower, is under several thresholds, 100,000 GPD takes you to a major user. And so we presumed over the 100 initially with the idea in mind of being regulated at the highest use and then doing the closed loop as was urged upon us.
All right, I'm going to shift gears for my last question. You're familiar with the $2.8 million grant that the governor of Florida gave to Citrus County for this HIP project?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the reasonings why he provided the $2.8 million to this county?
My understanding, and having spoken with people who were involved at the time, was to facilitate jobs.
Let me read it to you. The governor awarded a grant specifically to make Holder shovel-ready with water and sewer service so that this county could attract high-demand, high-wage jobs from employers who don't harm the nature coast. He goes on and says it's a strategic investment to strengthen the rural economies and attract job-creating businesses. Data centers, as being an environmental engineer that I am, doesn't attract a lot of jobs. So where does that come from? How can we satisfy the state on your request on a $2.8 million? Is this project worth breaking scrutiny ties with the governor and with the state and our allies within the state to get money to our county? Or what drives this, I guess, is a good question.
And our position is that we have provided competent, substantial evidence from an economics expert who works with rural counties all over the state and associations of rural counties that it will provide substantial jobs in the community.
So you're not from Citrus County, right? If I remember, you said you
No, sir.
Are you from Citrus County?
No, sir.
And so I'm assuming your staff or most of the people that has been part of this project is not from Citrus County and familiar with our area.
Actually, the people we've
Other than Clark. I mean, Clark's been here since God was a kid.
I've been here longer than you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I've been here longer than a lot of people in this room.
Yes, sir.
That's
We
right.
respect that, Clark.
Yeah. So I find that comment almost disingenuous. Mr. Ansbacher Mr. Ansbacher has practiced environmental and land use law for over 30 years. He formerly worked with FDEP. His credentials are excellent.
I'm not
He's the
questioning
head-
that,
He's
Clark.
been the head of the Florida Land Use and Environmental Law subsection. He's spoken throughout the state on CLE courses. So
It was a question about where he lives, Clark. It has nothing to do, and it's not a personal attack, so.
Thank you.
So to complete my question, you're unaware of the concepts or what it could do, the project, this intensifies to our community.
Sir, our position is we are doing everything we can to mitigate it.
But we have no mitigation in our packet.
The,
We're here to make a decision today on the information that you provide us, and we don't have the information. I don't feel, at least on all of it, we do have a lot of 494 pages worth, but I'm just trying to grasp and try to figure out where to go.
and the answer is on the issues that have been specifically raised, we have specifically responded.
Thank you. No further questions for me.
Mr. Bozeman.
Hopefully this will be specific. If I recall earlier, you said that there would be specific uses identified, not specific business types, but specific uses for the Tier 1 area and then for the Tier 2 area.
Yes, sir.
In other words, in Tier 2, you can only have this, this, or this, and Tier 1, this, this, and that. Is that correct?
And Tier 2 is essentially heavy industrial uses. Tier 1 is essentially light industrial warehouse type uses.
Okay. No, that's fair. And to Mr. Stillwell's point, I understand where he's coming from on what the county has done, and it's not an unreasonable. You have to provide clarity and certainty to businesses before they will make a commitment. I get that. I get that. So I'm not going to get real hung up on that. Power source for this particular facility. I mean, I'm sure there's been some conversations with with Duke Energy and others, whomever that might be. Natural gas is available close by, is that correct?
But we understand there's a substation hard by our property. And we also have discussed internally, even though it's more on the PSC side, that we support not causing any power costs to be shifted, any tariffs to be shifted away from the users on site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's seems to be a major concern potentially with folks in the room, and I don't want to speak for them, but we may hear that. I don't know. I think that to some degree, and that gives me a little bit more clarity about that. I think that's it for right now, David. I think that'll do it.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Ms. Katu.
I like that idea, but I don't think so. Mr. Stillwell just asked if we're going to break for lunch. I don't think so. All right, so this is actually for both applications, although I do have 13 up there as a number. This is actually going to cover it for both. So this is, as you've heard, a comprehensive plan amendment, an atlas amendment, and also a sub-area plan. This is the area of the application. Although this is being focused on the expansion of the sub-area plan, there are some changes to the existing 500-acre sub-area plan as well. And you've heard quite a bit. This is on 491 and 41. And yes, like Mr. Gibbs, I drove through that this morning, and the stoplight was malfunctioning, so it was really fun. Here is the zoning districts currently, and you have heard this as well. This is industrial based on that 2019 approval. And then you have a range of others. There's low density residential and rural residential. It is a very rural area. If you drive down Tram Road, it certainly is a very rural environment in this area. Across 41, there is a landfill type area there. There's a history of mining on the area, on the existing park. So this is the existing planned service area. I borrowed this from the applicant. It's a wonderful slide because it shows where the planned service area is being extended to. So let's talk a little bit about the planned service area. The planned service area is defined in our codes as where you would expect infrastructure to be in place. So although I would love it to say it's where water and sewer are, it's not. It's where we expect it to be in place, but it's not. For example, Chesawitzka, our water resources has done quite a push into Chesawitzka for water. Wonderful. However, it doesn't mean it's part of the planned service area. That's a very remote area. Like this is a rural area, so the planned service area extending doesn't really change a lot other than the fact that there is water and sewer here. All right, so this is the existing Holder Industrial Park. You have heard a history of that. You can see the kind of a bubble plan on the right, but it is more specific than what you're getting with the expansion area. But this is the existing, my understanding is this will not remain, that we're going to the new plan. And this is the new plan. This is all you have really is industrial. I did want to focus, and you heard my questioning about the open space on the south and the east. If those are going to remain, that does take some of the impact or potential impacts again, away from those neighborhoods. So I did want to talk about a couple things that came up with the board. First of all, as to why data center is not in the land development code. Good question, Mr. Barmes. Because it's brand new. This is something that we did not contemplate at all in 2019. In the statutes, and you'll see it in the staff report, there are definitions from Florida legislature that are for data center. Brand new. Everybody's trying to adopt it. I appreciate what the legislature is doing, and I'll talk about that in a second. But that's why it's not in there. To answer Mr. Shera's question, yeah, this is it. This is your one bite of the apple. So what they're asking for is the uses, I'll go one more, these uses to be allowed by right. So if you approve this and the county commission approves this, all of these uses can go forward at permitting, period. They're not going to come before you. They're not going to come before the county commission. These are allowed uses. So the ones that are highlighted there and underlines are their new ones. That, of course, is getting a lot of attention because of data centers and data center utilities. That is some significant impact. But you also heard from the applicant that they're not sure those are going to be those, but those are in here, and they certainly do stand out as new. Another thing that's new, just to point out to you, this is not an affordable housing project in any way. They do have workforce housing. Workforce housing is not super defined. It would be, it's always talked about, it's teachers and firefighters. Well, it's also county workers, but it would be something that's probably less than if you wanted to move into a brand new house in Citrus Hills, for example. It's one of the higher end ones. They're asking for quite a bump up in density, up to 12 units an acre. This would only be on the commercial area, which is the area down on 41. This would not be allowed in the industrial. That's a big density. We don't have a lot of 12 unit an acre properties throughout the county. So that alone is a bit of a concern. So going back to these uses, you have heard a lot of them. There's a wide range of uses here and a wide range of impacts for utilities. Water and sewer, traffic, stormwater, all of these would have varying uses. So some processing facilities maybe not, boat repair perhaps not, but also things like manufacturing. Those are some significant impacts. So it's really hard to determine concurrency, as you heard. Now, we'll disagree with Attorney Ansbacher. Concurrency does need to be demonstrated. What the statute says is it has to be in place by the time of CO. That is absolutely true. But it also says that development orders have to demonstrate it and comprehensive plans have to demonstrate it. So they're asking to put a sub-area plan, basically a master plan in the comprehensive plan. So we would be very irresponsible if we said, okay, you can do this, but we're not sure you're going to meet concurrency. By putting it in the plan, we are assuring that there will be adequate capacity for water, sewer, and stormwater. Now, I do have Mr. Dillmore here. He is a PE, and he's also the Utility Planning and Engineering Director. He can talk to you about water uses if you want to do that. He's at a disadvantage, however, because we really don't know. I heard the quote of 100,000 gallons per day in a closed-loop system. I've also read way more than I'd like to on data centers, and I know evaporation is a thing. So I don't think it's 100,000 and we'll never see you again. The applicant also discussed a well. It sounds like that's off the table now. That's good. Our comprehensive plan will not allow you to do that, especially when it's an industrial use and we know water and sewer are available. But one thing that our utility director, who's also our county engineer, has said is that whether it's a well or whether it's county water, it's the same straw. It's coming from the same finite source of water that we have. So there is a concern. We've been very fortunate in Citrus County with our water availability. Not all counties can do that, but it's finite. So we do need to be very careful about that. We have a lot of houses still coming, a lot are in the pipeline, a lot are under construction, and we'll be very cautious. But he's available if you have specific water questions. I'm not going to even try to go there. So there's also a few other things here. It talks about, yes, they are committing that if they need to expand a water or sewer, they have to do it. That's already in the code. That's nothing new. That's not really an offer from them. If a project is requiring additional water and sewer impacts, they have to pay for it. It's not something the county offers for them. Now, I did hear a lot about highest and best land use, and some talked about jobs and taxes. So just to touch on that really quick, economic development is not part of your land use comprehensive plan decisions. Of course, everybody wants jobs. Everybody does. But for a comprehensive plan, jobs and taxes are not in your toolbox. They're great. We want them. But for the comprehensive plan decision, that can't be one of your enters. You can say it again, it's compatible, it fits with the area, we have the capacity, this is a great plan, and hey, we're going to get great jobs. Absolutely, but don't make that your one finding, because that won't be able to hold up there. Talked about under allocation for industrial uses. So that's going on to the statutes. I'll go there in a second. For industrial, every time someone is changed from industrial to something else, they've come before you and they've come before the commission. They are generated by the actual property owner. Citrus County isn't going around and changing industrial lands. The property owners are because of demand. I don't want to compare ourselves to, I heard Sumter County. That's not Citrus County. Until the big warehouse type things in Marion County like Amazon and FedEx came in, industrial was going smaller and smaller footprint. Now they have this, data centers, they require more footprint, yes. Marion County has struggled with their new industrial. Some of them are empty. They've had demands on schools and on water and on traffic that have been very hard to deal with. So remember that industrial jobs, but it also has a lot of impacts that come with it. Okay, I have a lot in the staff report about the statutes. There's legislation going in. There's two that are running right now, and I did quote both of them in the staff report. But on this slide and on the next slide, this is gone. That's typical in legislation with the Florida legislature. They do change it throughout the process. But there's one in the House and one in the Senate that are running almost identical to each other. They're both, the House one went through the House and is at the Senate to consider. The Senate one went through the Senate and is at the House to consider. One of them is going to come out of here, and I'm pretty sure it's going to get adopted. That's going to significantly impact this. So there's a lot of public input that talks about we want the 5 mile, we want the 10 mile, we want the 1,000 feet. All that stuff is gone. What is in the bills, however, there's a couple things that are pretty important, and that's why in the staff report I said we really should wait. This legislature stuff they're trying to help us. They're going to help us, but they're not in place yet. So one of them says that if it's within 5 miles of a residential property or of a school, we certainly know this is, then they have to demonstrate the data center will comply with federal and state rules relating to RF frequency emissions, local noise control or abatement, and all other applicable land use regulations. They also must produce a noise impact study, and they have to address noise mitigation. We don't have that yet. That's wonderful. I'm loving that the legislature is putting that in as a tool for us, but it's not in place yet. Another thing they're talking about is the idea of electric. If you Google at one time a data center, you're going to get it on your feed constantly, which is what I'm getting now. But what it says is that you can see across the country when the data center goes in, the electrical demand goes in, which because electrical demand goes in, the prices go up for the cost of electricity. So everyone's bearing it. And so there's a lot of outcry about that. My utility bills are going up. Legislature's trying to help that. So what they're saying is that they're directing the Public Service Commission to develop minimum tariffs and service requirements to ensure that each customer bears its own full cost of service and not shifted to general ratepayers. That is wonderful, but it's not in place yet. So another reason why I think we probably want to stop and wait and get this stuff in place, because that's very important. Another idea is the water management district. Water usage is huge for a data center. We don't know this is a data center. You heard that. But If you approve this, you're allowing one or 2 or 10 to go in, whatever fits there. So what this bill says is that the water management district can't issue a water allocation permit if it's harmful to the water resources of the area or is prohibited by our zoning or comp plan. And they can only issue a permit if there's a reasonable beneficial use, it won't interfere with any presently existed legal use of water, and is consistent with the public interest. Excuse me, I'm talking too much now. It also requires a public hearing by the Water Management District. That's huge, too. If that was resolved and then this came to you, we would know a lot more. We would have things resolved in a public hearing process on how it relates to water. Thank you, Ms. Lynn. You're very nice on that. I thought it was for me. Unless you're being kind. It's only half. Pollen is,
Nobody got that
pollen
but
is the
me.
thing. All right. Finally, so these are some of the old legislation that's not in there anymore, but there's some great stuff in the bills that are coming through. So finally, this is the sub-area plan. Yeah, y'all have pointed out it's not specific at all. It's not a typical site plan that you would see. I'm not familiar with this board really allowing a general land use change without knowing what's proposed where, what's going in. We don't have that here. We have a list of some intensive uses, some not, and it'll go through. Changing to heavy industrial is a huge jump from low-density residential and rural residential. So to back that up, we really should have some uses, some mitigations, and if we're going to include something like a data center, which is a new evolving thing, we probably should wait till the legislature has something in place to help us. We don't right now. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, so guys, listen.
No clap.
I'm not trying to be and put a cold drop a wet blanket on your party, but this is going to be a long meeting. It's 11:30. This is not a theater. This is also not a street corner protest. So please hold all of your clapping, yelling, sighing, groaning, moaning, speaking out loud. Listen, I will hoot and holler with the best of you outside of this building, but I'm trying to run a formal meeting here. I'm running a tight ship. So if you can't keep it to yourself, you're going to keep it to yourself out front, okay? With that, does the applicant have any questions of the staff?
And I do have Mr. Dillmore. I'm sorry if you want questions on that too. Thank you.
No questions? Okay, we're bringing it back to the board. Questions? Mr. Facemeyer.
Joanna, one of the items that's been at the top of the BOCC agenda has been the expansion of 491 and long range 41. They have struggled with the most congested part of 491 now. Do you have any insight as to if this were to be approved, would the county commission, and I'm not asking you to speak for the county commission,
Please.
would you anticipate an expansion of 491 anytime in the near future?
It's actually already in the drawing board. They are working on that. I've been a party to some of those discussions. You heard Mr. Stillwell talk about S-curve. You can see it in the top right there where 491 does a little jag. And the applicants are willing to work, if they get this project, with the county to try to straighten that out. That's one of the things that's proposed as part of a 491 widening. I don't know if it's even funded. I do know that it is in the works as far as it's on the table and engineers are working on it. That's not 41, that's just 491.
Well, yeah, but that would spill over into 41 and 491. That intersection is bad today, as people who travel that on a regular basis know. You are confident, as you said earlier, that we will see some legislation soon.
They're both running very, very fast, and they're both in the alternative House and Senate. So I do expect one of them to pass. Now, I can't give you 100%.
No, I know. I mean, yeah.
But the way they've moved is this quickly, and they're very, very identical. So I think it's likely that we'll get something out of that. Yes.
Thank you.
Is that it? Mr. Bozeman?
Have you been provided with a specific list of uses for the Tier 1 area and the Tier 2 area? I don't know that I've seen that. I may have missed it. I know
Yeah.
you had it all there, but is that all combined?
Yeah, that's policy 17.36.3 in your packet, and that is the proposed uses for Tier 1 and Tier 2. So I did do a strike-through underline with the existing area. So those are the uses that could be allowed there. And then there's a definition for the commercial area that's right on 41, that's much smaller.
I was just showing the list, so that satisfies me. We do have specifics. But, so, just to ask a question, could you flip back to the map that showed the existing and then the proposed? And the question is, the what-if question. If the second area, as requested, is not approved for whatever reason, can they move forward with the existing area as is for industrial use?
They can. It would not include the additional uses that you just saw on that slide, but yes, they have.
Meaning Tier 2.
Meaning the uses that they've added in, such as data center and data center utilities, those are new uses. But all those ones that were not underlined are existing in that 500-acre area, yes.
So there is an industrial park that's available for use, available for development, as long as it's not the items you just described, correct?
Right, it was approved in 2019.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Morning,
I wanna
or
follow up on
afternoon,
two
getting
things.
close.
Pardon me?
It's getting close to afternoon, go ahead.
Soon it's going to be good afternoon. Hey, on this particular map, in your earlier discussion with the applicant, it seemed to indicate that lower leg of the proposed area is embedded with previous mining activity. And it looked graphically that any industrial development would exclude that area to that south leg. That's how I interpreted that. So really what we're talking about then would be the 500 acres that would be north of that residential area on the south.
Well, that's why I asked them on that question. So it would do right down here, but it wasn't all the way across. It wasn't entirely east-west, but there was a portion here and also a portion over here right next to Tram that was could be open space, as they said on that map, but it wasn't entirely. So I know they said 500, so many usable acres out of the 800, but I don't really have any map or delineation to confirm that.
Okay, thanks. Second question, your follow-up to my question. This is the one bite at the apple.
Correct.
Explain to me what a review process would look like at a later date if a data center or any other applicant comes forward. What process would that go through?
Well, that's a good question. As far as the county, it's very simple. As far as the state, the legislation will have to determine that. I don't know. But as far as for the county, if the county commission approves what's before you today, they can come in for a permit, a building permit, and apply, a site plan permit and apply. So that's it. There's no public notice for site plans and building permits. They just like building a house, but this is a much larger project.
If we were to consider approving this and applying conditions to the approval, could we suggest a condition for their review that they would obligate themselves to come forward through the existing process for review?
So just to clarify for the audience, you're recommending today. You're not really approving or denying. You're recommending to the board, but absolutely, the uses there, you can say that you do not recommend they be allowable uses, but instead they require a new PUD approved by the Board of County Commissioners, for example. For data center and data center utilities, those particular ones you can add cannot be approved by right, must require an additional PUD requirement, something like that. That is within your purview if you want to suggest that.
Is staff satisfied with the proposed modifications to the comp plan?
I think it was clear I'm not. I don't think there's enough here to provide heavy industrial on this many acres at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I just want to ask you the question about on the LDC. Do I have the right to come in and say, hey, I want to have such and such and add it to the list, like they added data centers and everything they add? How does that, what's the procedural for that?
And the citizens can initiate an amendment to the land development code. It has to go through the same hearing that we do. You hear me bring back land development code amendments all the time, not all the time, often. Somebody can do that, and Mr. Stillwell has in the past done that on behalf of some of his clients. If a new amendment to allow data centers in all zoning districts, you can apply for that, and it would go through hearings.
You have any traffic, excuse me, you have any traffic concerns, the way it was presented?
Some of the uses there are very high intensive traffic, some of the manufacturing plants, for example. So we don't really have the data to tell us, so I don't know.
It'd be the same question on the water. You don't have.
Right. I have Mr. Gilmore here, but he can only really speak on what's general. We don't know exactly what the uses are as to whether they could be used or not, or be adequate.
So let's say that this gets approved today and it goes to county commissioners, they approve it. And then they build this data center or whatever they put out there. Does the county have any emergency situation concerns?
Not being in emergency services, that's hard for me to answer. You did get one of your comments this morning in public input was from an emergency service provider who had his concerns. That was a public input statement.
I was more like hurricane comes, we have no power, but the data center's going to have 30 generators
Right.
taking up our propane or taking up our gas and using our water while we're struggling as Citrus County residents.
I appreciate that reminder. Governor DeSantis did say something that I didn't say in my report that I should have in my presentation. He mentioned that what happens with hurricanes, are the data centers going to be where the electric company concentrates online first before the houses? And that may be because of the use. So that is a very real concern, Mr. Barmas.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilbert, Ms. Murphy? No? I just have one simple question.
Okay.
The previous Holder Industrial Park, did we upzone that property?
Yes, it was not industrial.
What was the previous zoning?
It was the same as this. I think it was RUR and maybe some LDR.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
The entirety of the property?
The entirety of the property was changed to industrial. None of it was at the time, if my recollection is correct.
Okay. And then isn't there, like, across the street, Overdrive Circle?
Mm-hmm.
That is a current or was a previous industrial park.
Still is an industrial park. You're correct. That's what I mentioned. Across 41, there's a landfill. There's some industrial uses.
Do we know what the acreage of that is? I'm just curious.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what the acreage of that
Doesn't
is.
look very big.
On the area compared to this area, it's certainly much smaller, but
Is
I
it
don't
full?
know. Overdrive? We're
Yes.
still getting permits on it, so I don't think it is.
So it's not full.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Facemeyer.
Joanna, since you have an expert here, this
You want me to call him up?
better schooled in water and water
Yes.
consumption than me, can I ask a question? If a closed loop system,
Hang on, let me get Mr. Dillmore up here then.
well, then we'll get Mr. Gilmore.
Corin Dillmore, he's a PE. I had to read his title because it's quite the mouthful. Utility Planning and Engineering Director. He's also our Assistant County Engineer for the county. All yours. I'm much higher.
Got invited to this, so here I am.
Mr. Chair, you might want to have Mr. Dillmore just talk about his professional background.
Yes, sir.
Sure,
Add
go ahead.
it into the record for us, please.
Yes, sir, thank you. It pains me to say 25 years experience as a civil engineer. Every year I get older, but have a mix between private sector land development projects and public service. I've worked for held positions with DEP, City of Inverness, and most recently here at the county. So,
Thank you.
My question is, as with any closed loop system, whether it's the coolant system in your car or a closed system at a data center, at some point, once it's charged, it has to be replenished. It's probably not evaporation in this case, but it goes away. You have to add antifreeze to your car. I'm sure you have to add water or whatever the coolant is to these data centers. Can you give me an order of magnitude, how much evaporation or fluid loss we could expect over a period of time? Because it pains me that if I water my lawn more than my designated day and time, I can expect a nasty grant from the county. I think the people, the citizens of Citrus County do very well at towing the line with their water consumption. I'm very concerned about what could potentially happen with the water consumption on this site, even though it's a closed system.
Sir, I'm not familiar with the data centers or their potential, energy consumption. It's a matter of thermodynamics. You're gonna have heat, which is cooled, converted to steam. There's always that loss. I can't speak to it as far as with any knowledge to the daily loss in that system. Can only expect to see that once the a formal plan is submitted. The county utility could only comment on our current facilities in the proximity of the site, and also our permitted capacities. So regret I can't answer that question for you, sir.
If this proposal were to be approved at this level and then the county commission level, when one of these data centers were to be approved for construction, would you review it or someone in your department review it to see if they're going to do, or they plan to do what they say they're going to do?
Yes, sir, and that was spoken to in our concurrency letter for water and sewer. We identified our facility capacities and also indicated, anything beyond what our system can currently support would be the responsibility of the developer to increase the capacities in those systems. So it's something standard that we do in utilities on a day-to-day with other developers, is look at the offsite and their contribution to the system, as far as paying the fair share of the utility upgrades needed.
Do you have any knowledge of the amount of fresh potable water that would be required? We heard 100,000 gallons per day. How many days before the whole system gets up and running do we consume 100,000 gallons a day?
I have no knowledge of that, sir. I actually learned that 100,000 gallon figure today in this meeting. So,
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Scherer.
I hope a real quick one.
Yes, sir.
The applicant's identified a 2-year construction period. If it's required for you to upgrade your either potable water or sanitary system, can you make those improvements in a 2-year window?
It really speaks to what exactly those upgrades are that are needed. I can't give you a time frame without knowing the full picture of the scale of the development.
That's a fair answer. Thanks.
There's one, just as a follow-up, I know that was mentioned, the Holder Industrial Park, the new lift station Force Main that was associated with the governor's funding. That is on track to be completed by June of this year. So that was the last notice, amended notice to proceed that was granted to Integrity, who is the contractor currently constructing that line. So I just wanted to let you know that. It was mentioned previously, and just want to give you kind of the time frame of that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Is there any additional questions from the board from our expert? Mr. Barmez?
No.
No? Nobody?
Nope.
Alrighty, I think
All right,
we're done.
taking it easy on me today, huh?
Absolutely.
They were taking it easy on me.
Mr. Chair.
Do they have any cross? I don't know if they have any cross.
I thought about asking that. We had the water expert up there. No questions for him? Okay. Ms. Katu, were you?
I was done unless y'all have more questions.
Mr. Barmez, were you?
I do not have any questions for county.
Do not have any
I don't
questions?
have any more questions, no.
Okay, does anybody have any more questions for the staff? Okay, so we're going to close the staff portion of the meeting. We're going to get ready for the public portion of the meeting. I'm going to take,
Mr. Chair.
yes, sir.
At this time, I think several critical components of this application remain incomplete and unverifiable. We have yet had the full traffic impact analysis, confirm the availability of water, sewer, and electrical capacity, or the environmental or stormwater assessments needed to evaluate the downstream effects. These are not minor details. They are foundational elements required to determine whether the proposal meets our comprehensive plan, concurrency standards, and capability requirements. It also lacks the essential site-specific information such as operational characteristics, the intensity and infrastructure demands that would allow us to fully understand the impacts on the surrounding communities and the public facilities. Without this information, staff cannot provide a complete analysis, and the public has not had a fair opportunity to review and comment on the evolving record. Additionally, before this property is tied to a state economical development grant, we must ensure that any proposed use aligns with this grant, stated purposes, and does not jeopardize future funding for this county and its credibility to state partners. That determination cannot be made without additional documentation or clarification. For these reasons, the proceedings today would place this board in a position of making a decision without the complete evidence required by our law and by our own standards. These points to the county, the application lacks required technical studies needed to determine the compliance of the comprehensive plan, and the public has not had adequate opportunity to review the involving or newly submitted materials. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to make a continuance on this until this will ultimately enable and to ensure that whatever decision we ultimately make is defensible, transparent, and is in the best interest of Citrus County. So I do make a motion to continue this application until the applicant and the staff has the ability to get all the information that's required for a comp for this application.
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion for a continuance and a second, a first by Mr. Barmes and a second by Ms. Murphy. We have not had any public input yet. I believe, as a chair of this board, I believe that before we move on any motions, that we should hear from the public. It's noon. We've been here for 3 hours. I think that we owe it to the people in this room, and let's not forget there's an entire other room of people that have the opportunity to speak. So as the chair, I'm going to say your motion is going to stand. I would like to hear from the public input. We'll come back to your motion after the public input.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes?
So they would probably need to withdraw the second and withdraw the motion, have public input, and then consider any motions after the.
Okay.
Withdrawn.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Barmes?
Well, I just think that the evidence that's been presented has already been presented, and what we already know, we know. There's nothing that the public can add to what we don't know.
I think it's just worth.
I think
it's worth the public's time, just to respect their time for being
I do
here.
respect the public's time, and I do respect the letters, but I also think the public would also like to know what the true outcome will be.
Well, I would also say that the applicant said a lot of what they were going to decide, what they were going to do, and how they were going to deal with things dealt with public input. So maybe it's an opportunity for them to hear from some of the public. Maybe they'll hear some things that they haven't heard already. We would 100% give you the opportunity to continue and make your motion after the public, and we close the public portion of the meeting.
I'll withdraw my motion at this time.
So everybody, you second, first, okay. Okay, so we're done with you right now. We're back to the public portion of the meeting, but I'm going to tell you, here's what's going to happen. We're going to take a 10-minute recess, okay? Everybody be back in your seats at 12:08. The public portion of the meeting will start on time.
How do you do it? I spent a lot of
All righty. All righty, here we go. It's 12:08. Just like I said, if you guys would please find your seat and hold the side chatter again. So I'm going to take this upon myself real quick before we open the public portion of this meeting. I have never done this before, but I think it's appropriate in this particular situation. We have a lot of people. This is a highly contentious subject. We have people upstairs and downstairs. Want to do a couple of little housekeeping items, but I also put together a couple of sentences, a little passage that I want you guys to understand and know. This is like about my 11th year being on the planning committee. It's my second time being the chair. Dealt with a lot of people coming up here, people calling us this and people calling us that. So I'd like to just kind of give you guys an idea. Before we open up the floor to hear from all of you, I want to take a quick second to talk neighbor to neighbor about who is sitting up here today. Everyone you see on this board is a volunteer. We are not here for a paycheck. We're here because the BOCC asked us to serve a 4-year term to look out for the people of Citrus County, our friends, our families, and our neighbors. The BOCC intentionally brought together this cross-section of folks. We've got real estate brokers, builders, engineers, HOA presidents, and planners because they wanted a board that truly represents you. Like you, we all live, work, and play right here. We love this county deeply. I know there's a common worry that boards like this just rubber stamp every request that comes through, but I want to promise to you that isn't how we operate. We are a well-qualified group that puts a lot of cerebral energy and thought and careful thought into every single topic on this agenda because we know these decisions shape the future of our home. We are here to represent you, and we take that responsibility to heart. With that said, we have the second room upstairs. I've been informed that there's about 15 or 20 people upstairs that want to speak. So if you get up to speak, I would ask that you please, when you're done, make your way to the second room and allow the people that want to speak from up there to come down here. If you don't do it, I'm going to be keeping track of it, and I'll just move the first 15 or 20 people on my own, okay? The room it's streaming up there. You'll still hear and be able to see. It's 12:11. We're here on one topic. It's been 3 hours. I understand everyone in this entire room wants to speak and we want to hear from everyone, but what I would please implore you to do is if you have the same thing to say that the last 10 people got up and said, please just hold your comments. If you want to get up and talk, we will allow you your 3 minutes. And with that, 3 minutes is 3 minutes. You'll see the timer up there. I'm going to stop you at the end of your 3 minutes. If you're part of an organization and you have a letter, you're going to get 5, okay? But I just want to say, if you say the same thing, please just sort of hold it. If somebody's saying the exact same thing that you are, please do us a favor. We're all up here. Like I said, we all have jobs. We all have families at home. We would like to get out of here before 5 o'clock tonight. Okay? So with that being said, the public portion of the meeting will now be opened. If there is anyone present who would like to speak on this application, please come forward to the podium. As a reminder, individuals have 3 minutes to speak and organizations have 5 minutes. When speaking on the application, please address the board. If you have any documentation that you want to be entered into the record, please provide a copy to the recording secretary. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Joe Hicks, 4372 North Saddle Tree Drive. I'm an effective person under Florida statute. This application seeks to add info processing, data center, data storage as permitted uses without defining the terms. This renders the amendment vague, unenforceable, and inconsistent with state law 163.3.177, paragraph 1. The absence of a site plan or equivalent detail and the impropriety of amending the comp plan with an undefined use case violates the core principles of the Florida's Growth Management Act, Chapter 163. First, the proposed amendment is impermissibly vague. Neither the comp plan nor the LDC define data center nor data center utility. Florida law requires land use regulations to be clear. Miami Beach versus Ocean and Inland, they held that vague ordinances are invalid because they fail to provide fair notice. Data center-centric definitions and standards for water, energy, light, noise, concurrency, and environmental impacts are not addressed in this application. The county commissioners voted unanimously to draft LDC guidelines just last month. This affirms that the current plan is insufficient for a data center. Approving this amendment would invite vagueness challenges and undermine orderly development per Florida Statute 163-3161. Second, the application lacks a required site plan or equivalent detail. It lacks that detail that's required to evaluate impacts. Florida Statute 163-3177 mandates relevant and appropriate data and analysis. Quote, this application does not bind the developer to any specific use. Without a site plan or that equivalent information, no infrastructure concurrency, nothing for water, nothing for sewer, nothing for transportation, electric, other public facilities. The amendment fails to demonstrate compliance per County Policy 17.7.3. Quasi-judicial decisions must be based on competent, substantial evidence. The application before you fails to provide use case-based planning information. Third, the county cannot lawfully amend the comp plan to an undefined use case without ensuring consistency across all elements per Florida Statute 163-3177, paragraph 2. Adding a data center could conflict with water policy and LDC 4900, buffering policy and 17.74. Details about water, electricity, light pollution, infrastructure, all these must be known in advance to enable proper planning, concurrency, evaluation, and public facility operations. Because these demands are not quantified in the application, the amendment fails to provide data and analysis needed for informed decision-making is not in compliance with Florida 163.3184. In conclusion, approving this amendment would violate Florida Statute 163 by adding an undefined data center term use case to the comp plan without clarity, predictability, data-supported analysis, no internal consistency that the Growth Management Act demands. Such an approach invites arbitrary enforcement, undermines orderly growth, and fails to protect public resources and communities. For these reasons, the application must be rejected because it contains undefined terms without a site plan or the equivalent detail. Thank you.
Good afternoon in the meantime. John Ovink, 6086 North Bayfront Drive in Hernando. I'm speaking against the rezoning measure you're proposing, specifically the section where you would not exclude a data center. Not just for my property values, we will probably plummet, but you'll need to talk to my heirs about that. I'll probably not sell during my lifetime. I'm 72. I have several issues with the potential data center in Hernando. Number one, I'm sure you've all seen the CBS News item warning about the danger for our lungs, and as a senior, yes, it concerns me. I'm within the distance that it would include the danger for my life. Then there's the issue of diesel generators that they might use when there is a power shortage. You all know that there's a tremendous number of power outages in the area throughout the year, as well data centers use a ginormous amount of power. And you'll remember a couple of weeks ago, we got letters from Duke Power asking us to please turn our temperatures down in our house and freeze because otherwise there wasn't enough power. A data center is going to harvest that power. And if they don't have it, they'll use diesel generators. Diesel generator is air pollution and noise pollution. Final, or not the least issue, is water. Apopka is a bird sanctuary and a recreational area. It also provides water for Central Florida. We need to treasure that. I get monthly reports on the water situation from Swiftmud, and I'm quoting directly from this. This is 3 days old. The water situation in Central Florida does not look good. Here's some information from Swiftmud. Our water resources remain low for this time of year. We still got a few months of raining in the dry season. February did bring a few days of good rainfall in the Huitlacochee watershed, providing minor relief, but this relief will temporary as our warmest dry season months are yet to come, and water levels are expected to continue to decline. So far, January, February, our region has received 3.4 inches of rain, which is well below the average for the first 2 months of 5.7. Over the past 12 months, we've remained in double-digit deficit for rainfall, minus 15 inches. And aquifer groundwater levels remain below average, current in the 18th percentile for this time of year and much lower than last year, and this is not going to improve. Even if you use reclaimed water, you still have to get access to it. Data centers have a tendency to use a tremendous amount of water, and they're not sharing. And speaking of sharing, data centers do not share. They don't employ local populations, nor do they share their profits with the local governments or the populations. Please do not allow a data center to take foot in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Good
ma'am.
afternoon. Diane South, 5530 North Elkham Boulevard, Pine Ridge. The topic today is probably not so much the data center, but the fact that this is a rezoning issue. They are trying to rezone to a, I'm sorry. What they're trying to do is to rezone to a heavy, could somebody help me? Thank you, industrial area. Now, once it is rezoned to that industrial area, they probably have carte blanche to do what they wish unless we set the guidelines and we can hold their feet to the fire, which is my understanding that that is not necessarily you're able to do so. And I say this as an example where a developer has bought a piece of property, and in that piece of property, they're able to go through and change the layout of it, and then in turn resell it to somebody else. So the same thing, it appears, is happening again now. An issue brought up that I hear on the news is the fact that President Trump has talked about if you have a data center, which of course this is all hypothetical because we really don't know what's going in there at this time, they have to build their own power plant. Now, the power plant is very important, however, it's still going to require, energy from our area because we're under restrictions, as was mentioned before, about our water. And we do have an issue going on with the sand mine and the fact that it's interfering with our aquifer at this time. And these are continuing issues that are going on. To touch lightly on the traffic, we know that 491 and 200 has huge traffic issues. And we also know that there are 600 new homes that are proposed for that area as well. And if you look at the statistics that were provided, they show that 2,450 jobs would be in this area, which means that's going to be an additional 2,450 vehicles on our roads that are 2 lanes. Each are 2 lanes. Yes, we did get a turn lane or a turn light recently, but that's just that. And then afterwards, it's talking about having 825 jobs. Well, are these guaranteed jobs? We have no idea if this is actual, factual or enough. Are we going to train our people? How many are guaranteed for our community? We know that we do not have the manpower for the construction at this point, so these jobs are not necessarily going to our people here in Citrus County or surrounding areas. And I realize that, people commute nowadays 45 minutes to an hour, but we need to look at our community first. And so having said that, I do thank you for your time, and I please hope that you vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Rutemiller, Rutemiller. Excuse me. Is this doing something? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we start over, please? Reset the clock. You're not going to reset the clock. Okay. There are 6 elements associated with this issue: electrical, water, noise, employment, revenue, and quality of life. I've analyzed all of them, and one of them is probably the most significant in my mind. By the way, my background, I'm an industrial process control engineer, and I've done industrial process controls for SCADA systems and all the related equipment for over 30 years. Why do I pick noise? Noise has been properly identified by Mr. Hicks, and he's in your documentation packet, especially on page 145 and 154. And he talks about low-frequency noise. Low-frequency noise, guess what? It's totally avoided in this application because they're using metrics of dBA. The A represents the normal range of human hearing. It does not take into consideration monitoring of low-frequency noise. This is extremely important, and I highly suggest that the staff change the standards or ask questions about dB, not dBA, because it's hiding the true effect. And the effect is low frequency. What this is it's generated from the cooling fans, from the motors, from anything that's mechanical. And the low frequency noise travels an extremely long distance. It cannot be stopped with barriers. It cannot be stopped through windows. It penetrates through barriers, through windows. It goes up and around it. And the low frequency noise has caused some very, very documented effects on the human population. For example, migraines, vertigo, nausea, panic attacks, tendinitis, and permanent hearing loss. This is all very well documented. The mental and the physical toll is significant, and annoyance, sleep disruption, and chronic stress can lead to long-term health problems. I've also submitted as part of the documentation a map which describes just 3 miles. This is a 3-mile map that you all should get a copy of. It's already been submitted. And it also describes the effect. The immediate effect is that within the 3 mile, it will affect all of the population. It's my belief that this is going to impact the surrounding communities, and Holder Industrial Park is not an acceptable location for the data center. Thank you.
My name is Keith Stubblefield. I live at 555 East Brandon Street in Hernando. I would like everybody to focus their attention to the wall right over here to my left. And what's on there is the vision statement. A welcoming, economically vibrant community where people and nature live in harmony. You'll notice that people and nature are last. Now, let's take a look back here at the mission statement. It says our mission is to manage growth and foster prosperity by prioritizing protection of environmental assets, the development and maintenance of infrastructure, and the health, safety, and well-being of Citrus County citizens. You'll notice that the citizens are also mentioned last. This is your opportunity to make the citizens come first. And if this heavy industrial is approved, then you really need to rewrite your vision statement and your mission statement. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Kranak, and I have, for the past 30 years, lived at the end of East Shales Court, which is right there at the farm. My front porch, I look out at the most beautiful landscape with cows, trees, and rolling hills. To my right, I have the old railroad track with trees also, and it's been that way for a long time. Now, I know that change happens, but I'm going to tell you what I've seen over the last 30 years, and particularly in the last less than 6 months. Coming from, first of all, on my property, like I said, it's right next to this proposed change, is 5 gopher tortoise holes. I will be working in my bedroom and look out the window and see the gopher tortoise walking by. And they're big. They're this big now. They've been there that long. I've also saw, within 6 months, an 8-foot-long eastern indigo snake, which is another good reptile to have because it's perfect to have around. And in fact, they're breeding them in Gainesville. And that was, my dog was barking at that. I've seen deer, bobcats, turkeys, which the turkey parents bring around their babies every year. And this year there were 20. I counted them. Raccoons, armadillos, and of course wild hogs, which nobody will probably cry about that. But my thing is, if you're aware that approximately 200 acres of this is non-buildable, why would you rezone it and make it possible for them to come in and do something and get rid of all those animals? I appreciate your comment about the wildlife. There's a lot of it back there, and I see it all the time, and I just love it. The sign out front I saw says, "Welcome to Citrus County where nature and community thrive," which is kind of reiterating what he said. It does thrive in there. It's not a beautiful piece of property, but it is beautiful to them. And my last thing I would like to ask is not that you table this, but that you reject it, and then they can go back and rewrite what they want to rewrite and resubmit it. That's what I would do. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's nobody left upstairs to speak, so nobody has to walk upstairs anymore.
Okay. You guys all hear that? Good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Athleen Bulla, and I live in Hernando, Florida. I think it's we can all say that this is the wilderness corridor. Okay, we live on the nature coast, and Congress knew that. The 87th Division of Congress got together and they put together a document called 585, and that is the Four Rivers Basins Project. I've only brought what is the outline for the project for you to review, okay, if you want to take a look. Citrus County sits on top of the outcroppings for the Floridan aquifer. This is not just a resource for us, and nobody is entitled to it. This is a national resource. This is something that is for everyone, and this document is extremely important. The Army Corps of Engineers did a very good job of, this is for the Water Management District, of going into detail about what Citrus County has all the way down to the Green Swamp and how important it is. There's maps in it. We're making a very big mistake, and I don't even, to rezone it, my well is already contaminated, and I'm just north. I'm very sick. If anybody else just wants to see, I brought a copy for people in general. I go to Shands almost every other week. I have insecticides, pesticides, organophosphates, avicides that are like forever chemicals that are in my well. You need to be very careful what you do so close to our water. It's going to kill people. Thank you.
Not meant for short people. My name is Carrie Perez, P-E-R-E-Z. I live at 5379 East Marsh Lake Drive in District 5 in Hernando. I'm speaking on behalf of the Arrowhead Citizens Association. We request that the board deny rezoning applications submitted by Deltona on the following grounds. The proposed site is removed from major regional corridors like I-75 and 589. Access would rely primarily on 41 and 200, neither designed to handle industrial traffic. The bridge over the Withlacoochee River was built in 1935. If you look, it's currently only one step away from being shut down completely. Deltona Corporation demonstrates a pattern in which residents bear infrastructure costs through mechanisms like MSBUs. This history raises legitimate concerns from the community that road upgrades and maintenance resulting from the expansion would shift costs to taxpayers rather than remain the responsibility of the developer. According to current SwiftMud maps, the area that they're thinking of dealing with here has a high groundwater pollution potential per SwiftMud. Rezoning to allow heavy industrial uses in this vulnerable discharge area is inconsistent with prudent water resource management and the state's groundwater protection policies. The requested zoning is materially inconsistent with the existing future land use designation and the established character of the surrounding community. Spot industrial zoning in a predominantly residential and environmentally sensitive area not only undermines the integrity of the comp plan, but it sets precedent for incremental industrial encroachment. Deltona's conceptual application lacks specificity, thank you, does not comply with documentation standards, it provides no site plan, no identified end users, no defined operational parameters. An open-ended request for unspecified industrial uses deprives both the board and the public of the ability to conduct a meaningful compatibility and impact analysis. It effectively asks us to just rely on their assurances. A data center is not a traditional industrial use. It's not defined anywhere in any Citrus County documents. There are no guidelines. Regarding closed loop water systems, they are new emerging technology. And as recently as late last year, 2025, such systems are considered rare at large-scale facilities, and they are even more energy intensive. The energy has to come from somewhere. The increased demand necessarily increases indirect water consumption through fossil fuels and nuclear power generation. Any evaluation of water must account for the total life cycle of water and energy impacts, not just merely on-site withdrawals. The absence of a defined end user, a detailed operational plan, and enforceable conditions raises due process and public notice concerns. Major land use amendments require full disclosure to ensure our informed decision-making. We have heard a lot of public safety concerns, the obvious ones: sound, light, noise, and even frequency considerations of the low frequency. So I see that in Florida State mentions radio frequency, RF, which is high frequency. But as mentioned, that low frequency travels a long way, and our community is well within that area. I would like you to consider the precautionary principle. It's a widely recognized public health standard where the burden of proof of safety rests on the applicant, not the end user, not us, not the community. You know, Mr. Leonis said, we all have to live somewhere, but we live here, you live here, we live here, and we're very close by. So for these reasons, transportation inadequacy, environmental vulnerability, inconsistency with the adopted land use policy, lack of specifics, and foreseeable harm to the established communities, we respectfully request that the board deny this rezoning application. Thank you for your time.
Carissa Gandy, 2740 North Rutgers Terrace in Hernando. These people have come from other states and other counties, and they come here telling us what's best for us. And they've probably paid these locals a lot of money to do the same. Progress is a word that we hear a lot in this county. Progress with travel, building, infrastructure demands. The commissioners tell us that the county doesn't have enough money to support the progress that's coming into this county, and then they demand more money from its residents and approve unwanted spending. The board shouldn't rezone this land because of the dangers it could have on the land, water, and residents, and quick growth that will happen. And rezoning almost 800 acres of industrial zoning puts a severe danger on the one thing you guys are supposed to be protecting. For 4 months, we've been in a burn ban. There isn't enough water to suppress the dangers, to simply keep us safe from fires. Water levels are at an all-time low across the entire state. Swift Mud has declared a severe water shortage, and Citrus County is under mandatory water restrictions. The infrastructure isn't available for apartment complexes, but apparently it's okay for high industrial. Just last year, the fire department said that even with the additional funding that they are receiving, are still ill-equipped to handle the fire needs of this county. Rezoning this land to high industrial puts more pressure on Station Number 5 in Hernando, who already serves a large high-risk area, and would require help from Station 20 in Pine Ridge. This progress is not what's in our best interest, and your jobs are to be good stewards. Approving this rezoning puts people's safety at risk and puts our land at risk. I play a game called SimCity Builder. It's from the 90s. And in this game, you get to rezone land. You get to build a whole entire city. It requires power, water, and all sorts of stuff. What you learn in this game is that any industrial land, including high industrial zoned areas, creates a massive water and air pollution. It creates health problems of the residents and surrounding areas. And currently, the buffer that they keep talking about is already there. But they're wanting to rip all of that down and build a tiny little buffer of maybe about 2 mobile homes deep. Your mission statement says our mission is to manage growth and foster prosperity by prioritizing the protection of environmental assets and the health, safety, and well-being of Citrus County residents. But that's not their mission. Their mission is to make as much money as they possibly can for the corporations that they work for. They don't care about us.
My name is Tony. 1356 East Oriole Court, 1356 East Oriole Court, Hernando. I didn't know that we'd have the pleasure and the right to speak, so I'm coming here just winging it with no prepared speech. Short background. I'm a geoscientist, retired after 42 years of college, university teaching experience. My expertise is not groundwater hydrology. It's glacial geomorphology, and I don't think you need to hear anything from me on that. And finally, I feel like I should use at least one whole minute to thank all of you for your service. I'm a vet, and I'm always thanked for my service. I wonder how often you are. And this has been wonderful, the way you've donated your time and been so understanding to agree to hear us. What alarms me, what concerns me more than anything else is the physical environment, particularly the groundwater. And I don't think that anyone should, you should approve this request for a zoning change until further environmental impact studies are done. I would suggest that SwiftMud has groundwater hydrologists who know their stuff about the Florida aquifer. But believe me, I have taught courses that involve geology courses that involved the study of groundwater hydrodynamics. And boy, I'm nervous. I can guarantee you that the Florida aquifer is extraordinarily fragile. And it's in a very delicate position right now. We just heard from a lady who is suffering from the consequences of well contamination. 110-foot well is usually adequate in that area that you're thinking about making a zoning change. But I haven't heard anybody say anything about a cone of depression, drawdown, recharge rates. The groundwater flows underneath us probably, and I'm guessing, 5 feet a day. I haven't heard anybody mention saltwater intrusion. And I think some of those things have not come up because the proposal is suggesting a closed loop system. How is the closed loop fluid going to be handled if there's a leak?
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Will Spencer. Excuse me, I'm a retired disabled combat vet, and I hadn't given serious consideration as to those low dB levels, but I can tell you that when I'm exposed to those types of sounds, it does bring up anxiety and panic, and it does create headaches in me, and I'm concerned about that. I'm glad somebody brought that up. That wasn't going to be my first point, but my questions for the board are, I apologize if they're somewhat redundant. How can a proper environmental study be done when it's a blank check? We don't even know what is going to end up there. You can't approve that. They just want to get it approved and then put whatever they want in there. Let's see. Questions that I would have you ask them, since I understand it's not the time to ask the developers these questions. Since they've already acknowledged that southernmost tip is not usable, then why even draw that into the proposal of land that they want? That's a moot point. They could have cut it off north of that. That doesn't make sense to me. Let's see. 2, 4. Oh, I recently read something from President Trump that he signed a Ratepayer Protection Plan Act, and a lot of the larger corporations that were mentioned that are building these data centers have signed on to that. I'd be curious to know if they have signed on to that and if they even know what it is. You might want to look into that one. Let's see. Oh, during the course of their discussion, the developer representatives used a lot of ambiguous terms such as, well, that's our intent, that's the estimated, that's the initial, that could be supplemented. Well, the general proposal is, those are too many open-ended things. That leaves too much room for them to just fill in the blanks later on. My last two questions for you are, I'm not familiar with the process. So you make a recommendation. It was pointed out you don't approve. You only make a recommendation. So whether you recommend they approve or disapprove, it goes to who is the final approval?
It goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay. And the Board of County Commissioners just takes your recommendation into consideration, but they have the final approval, correct? Okay. So I see that's the answer to that one. And then, are these slides available online for us to have access to after?
Yes, all of this is public record.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Josh Wooten, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. My professional address is 951 North Suncoast Boulevard, Crystal River. And I, too, want to compliment y'all. There's been great questions. Mr. Chairman, the way you've run this meeting has been superb. When Mrs. Coutu was up here, who I have a great deal of respect for, she said this is the last stop. Well, it is the last stop for y'all, admittedly. So this would be a good time for y'all to put serious recommendations on the record that you may want them to do to mitigate some of these things for our community. But it's not the last stop for the developer, I can assure you. Do y'all remember the famous campground? They just got their Swift Mud permit after, what, 2.5 years and probably a couple of $100,000. And right now, they're finally getting a health department permit. So to make the public think this is the last stop and they can do anything they want on their property, there's environmental issues. There's they have to go through Swift Mud, they have to go through DEP, they have to go through the county. I can assure you, Joanna Coutu and Eric Landon are not going to just sit idly by while they rape our landscape. They're very conscientious about how they handle development. There was also the talk about how our reputation would be harmed with the governor. We hear that a lot when the state's involved, and I can assure you I was with the team that asked the governor's office for that money, and I was here when the governor delivered the money, and I was here a couple of months ago when the Secretary of Commerce flew over that site. So I think we can allay your fears. They know what's going on. When you're talking about possibly, and we all know what's in the background here, but when they know about possibly $3 billion, $4 billion investment into a community in Florida, believe me, they're well aware. But what today is a rezoning of 835 acres to make this one of the largest industrial parks in Central Florida. Now, regardless of what goes there, that makes it attractive to many, many companies. And what the applicant is saying, it could be a data center. Well, you know, I've been around a while. I think there must be one knocking on the door. But what is being proposed in Washington, which I did read about the President's Ratepayer Act, and what's happening in Tallahassee, this developer would have to put those same guardrails up. Nobody has applied for a data center. There's been no application, so they'll be bound by whatever you say, whatever the county commission says, whatever the state says, and what the federal government says. This is new technology. So what we're doing here is we're getting ahead of the game. You know, we have an opportunity here. There's opportunity in creating some jobs. There's opportunity in putting something on the tax roll that we desperately need that could produce $10 million a year in revenue. You know, I think when I was a commissioner, it was about 70-30 on taxation. Businesses paid about 30%, residents paid 70%. Now residents are paying 80% of the tax bill. Of all the revenue that comes into the Board of County Commissioners, residential's paying it. We had a consultant last year tell us we're underserved in industrial property, woefully underserved. I think it's part of y'all's responsibility to help us dig ourselves out of that hole. I don't want anything that poisons our water or creates noise, especially for our disabled veterans, or makes our electric bill go up. But the research that I've done through the Commerce Department, online, and Citrus County word of mouth, no, I'm just kidding about that last one. The research that I've done is this is an emerging technology and everybody's trying to build guardrails around it. So the next stop is the Board of County Commissioners. Whatever happens in Tallahassee would have happened by then. Last thing is, and I'm not picking on Joanna Coutu because I have a great deal of respect for her, but there is a jobs element in the comprehensive plan. There is. So you can consider jobs, and we desperately need jobs. We have a 6.9% unemployment rate. Passing this today to the county commission would tell them that we're serious about moving the needle in Citrus County, and they will have to be the last stop for approval.
Thank you. Am I supposed to do something with this to?
Please pull the microphone down to you, and no, you don't need to do anything. Just state your name.
Okay, my name's Cheryl Curtis. I live in Beverly Hills. Get that there. So I'm here to oppose the zoning, the approving of this proposal to get those 800 acres. Once we give that away and we zone that for a data center, it's out of our control. And as many of you know, Elon Musk was building a data center out, I think it was in Kentucky, and he didn't get any of the once he had it, he just built it. He didn't follow all the rules and regulations, and he's got a lot more money than our county does to fight you in court over anything after the fact, right? So I would be thinking about that. And so the data centers, just to review, they have water issues, electricity issues, noise issues that hurt human health and wildlife health. They have bad smells, they have toxic chemicals, they don't create many jobs, and they also kind of enable in surveillance of all of us. They store our data and then they sell it to make money to other corporations, et cetera, and who knows what else. So I am in opposing this. And I want to just let people know here that I'm getting a petition going with all of your names, if you're interested, in case we need to organize.
Please address the board and speak into the microphone.
In case we need to organize again. So I'll be in the lobby if you want to sign this. Thank you, and thank all of you. Appreciate it.
Miss Curtis, I need your yellow sheet.
All right, ready? Oh, yellow sheet, sorry. Hi, I'm Susan Shadell, 6080 North Bayfront Drive in Hernando. I grew up in a small, quaint South Florida fishing town. We had one stoplight, left our doors unlocked, and played outdoors at every chance we got. Wildlife was a part of every landscape. I grew up in Naples in the 70s, where as a child, I climbed the dredge at Collier Seminole State Park, which commemorated the passing of the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act was necessary to protect the water in Florida because of the results of years of expensive legal battles with the Deltona Corporation's environmentally destructive dredge and fill method of making large subdivisions in the Everglades and out of South Florida's sensitive marshland, mangrove forest, and estuaries. They created the largest ecological and water disaster in our state, and we're still dealing with it. This same company, despite new owners, they have bait and switch complaints against them. They do not tell the truth. Anyways, despite all this that went on, the small town charm of Naples, the historic old Florida homes, pristine beaches, and abundant forest lured outsiders to our quaint hometown. When I left Naples, commissioners were going to jail for bribery. There was inadequate infrastructure to support development. Historic homes with native trees were replaced with zero lot line McMansions and exotic water-thirsty plants and fertilizer to water the sod. A once 20-minute daily drive to the YMCA took well over an hour. A recent visit back to Naples revealed traffic lights on most every block and heavy congestion, and my wildlife sightings were reduced to roadkill and released exotic pets like iguanas and pythons. I feel so very blessed to have discovered Citrus County and have called it home for 26 years. Right now I have several hundred sandhill cranes nesting in my backyard and countless other species of songbirds and waterfowl. Gopher tortoises, cooters, fox, coyote, raccoon, opossums, fish, frogs, gators, and even a bear is one of my neighbors in Hernando, along with some really great people who love our area like I do. Not a single one moved here for industry. The speakers here are passionate and emotional about this issue because it matters to us, to nature, and our way of life. Deltona cares about making a profit and not our best interest. There's still plenty of undeveloped industrial zoned land and miles of undeveloped vacant lots and unmaintained pothole-filled roads in Citrus County that they can line their pockets with.
Thank you.
Learn from our mistakes, please. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Beth Antrim, and I'm from Hernando, Florida. A lot of this information has been presented by the applicant that I'd like to sum up. In 2017, Deltona applied to rezone 550 acres of residential property to industrial. The application was denied by the state and the county after they noted that US 41 and County Road 491 were two-lane roads. In 2019, the board did approve the rezoning, and the property became the Holder Industrial Park under the comprehensive plan. Since 2019, nothing has changed. Not one portion of that 550 acres has been developed for industrial use. US 41 and County Road 491 are still two-lane roads. We heard the applicant state that COVID could be blamed for no development out there. However, there's been a lot of development in Citrus County since COVID, and sometimes even during COVID. There's just been no development of industrial land on 41 in Hernando. There's been more development of low-density residential property. So there's no demand for rezoning and almost doubling, actually doubling, more than doubling the size of this industrial park. The applicant has claimed that the use they're proposing through the rezoning and the designation of data centers as a permissible use would not have, it is compatible, and they quoted the law that states the use would not have unduly negative impact on the use or condition of neighboring property. This is absolutely not true. We've heard about all the negative effects of a data center on neighboring property and properties which the legislature has determined even within a 5-mile radius of a data center. They've also claimed that they're meeting the objectives of the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. This is not true either, because Goal 22 of the economic development element states that it is to promote and maintain economic growth while protecting the environment and the current quality of life. This rezoning and adding data centers as a permissible use does not help the environment, and it certainly doesn't protect the quality of life of the citizens of Citrus County. I live on property that abuts Potts Preserve, which is an 8,500 preserved area owned by Florida, managed by SwiftMud, to take care of all the watershed and groundwater recharge areas that feed our Sala Apopkachena lakes and the Withlacoochee River. Right now, the lake is down 3 feet in the canal behind my house, which is a canal that was dredged out years ago. The rest of the lake area is mud. And based on living here for 25 years, I know what comes next. The mud's going to turn to dirt. My canal's going to be empty.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right, my name's Art Chambers. I live at 6676 North
bullseye lane right up there. They're at my back door. They're knocking on it. I know it's going to happen. As soon as they crank out that machinery, it's going to suck my well dry in a heartbeat. My background as an environmental health and safety professional. Some of the projects I was on was crash recovery, Pentagon, all the way around renovation. I worked at a bunch of places that have three letters behind their name. So I've seen a lot of things, and also was involved with data centers. Another question y'all ain't said anything about, how big is this damn place? How many square feet? 1.5 million, 2 million? How many gallons of water does it take to take 500,000 square feet? Nobody's asked that question, have they? Now, somebody hit these points earlier. They did a good job. When the power goes out, the generation's going to start up. How many cats are going in there? How many fuel tanks? How many gallons of fuel is going to go in there? How about emergency responders? Anybody thinking about them yet? What equipment are they going to need for the lithium batteries in there? What fire equipment do they need for all them fuel tanks going in? Nobody's talked about that yet. Think long term. I know when I was involved in that data center, I had a whole laundry list of things I had to comply with, to include sound. Well, sound is one thing. That barrier you're talking about ain't nothing. You need to go beyond that barrier. What sounds are you talking about? What decibel levels? The guy had a good point. The lower frequency decibel levels are devastating. Also, too, in that traffic. I keep on hearing traffic. There's only one way out of Tram Road there, up on top there, and that's a dangerous place to come out of there. I race stock cars, too. I tried to pull out of there with my trailer in the back of me, I about get run over. They talking about straightening that road off, too, right? I ain't seen no talk about that yet. And also, too, we talked about, or my neighbors, we try to get information from y'all. Oh, we don't know about it. Nobody had any answers for us. Nobody. Not until, about a week or two ago. Why can't we get answers? That's where I'm at. The other guys in the front did a good job covering my other stuff I had. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Emily Casey. It's 1430 East Hartford Street in Inverness, well, actually Citrus Hills. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to cover, but I'm going to try not to reiterate everything. Couple of things. A question to you all, and of course I know it's the Board of County Commissioners that have ultimate say-so, but just last year, sewage pipes were put into Cambridge Greens area, and now you're wanting to charge the residents around approximately $10,000 that we're going to have to come out of our own pocket. And we were told this was put in there to, protect the springs and to save the manatee. Okay, well, it's still a lot of money. But if something like this, even just if it's rezoned as a heavy industrial area, there's a huge potential to destroy the springs and destroy the manatee. So as a resident of Cambridge Greens, I'm wondering why we have to shell out this $10,000 if something like this would be passed. That's just kind of a personal question there. The other thing is that I'm also a member of the Withlacoochee Aquatic Restoration out of Inglis, and a large-scale industrial siting like this, and this location would pull water from the Rainbow River recharge area, the Withlacoochee watershed, also the Crystal River watershed, and again, as it's been stated over and over again, we're in a drought. There's lower surface water, there's lower Floridian aquifer water. So what's going to happen, even if it's not a data center, if it's just some other large-scale industrial site that's put there? So ultimately, my request is to have, I think that to have in this area that seems to be a lot of residential area around, To have this area to rezone to heavy industrial is just not the right thing to do, irregardless of whether it's a data center or whatever would be put there. It would still be heavy industrial complexes there, and I would feel really bad for the residents that live in that area. And if it is a data center, you have to think about not only the water, but if it's a closed loop system, they use a lot.
Permanent, nor do they bring the number of jobs to justify a data center to our community and environment. And will H-1B visa workers be used versus our future generations? They said data centers will have less impact on transportation. What about how ruinous it will be during the construction phase, like transportation? Whose responsibility will it be for cleanup and road repair for this expansion? We can't get roads repaired now. Environmental assessment, we're not required? Really? This should frighten all of us that they have that feeling of no assessment for the environment is needed. Yes, there are state bills that have passed the Senate and sitting in the House, and those state bills are protections against data centers. Great. I ask we wait for the state bills to pass if a data center is proposed.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Austin Edminster. I live in Pine Ridge, and I just came here today, and it's my first meeting that I've ever been to. Everything I heard, again, like some of the gentlemen said before me, it seemed like they couldn't really answer anything directly, and I think that's a way for them to slither out of, putting themselves in a situation where they have to abide by a certain rule. I think they definitely have an end user in mind, and they're just not going to admit it. I think they need to admit who the end user is first before we even consider allowing this to pass. I think that's all I really have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is Jay Gaio. I live in Beverly Hills. I've lived here my whole life. And I just think, well, first of all, I want to say I do see the importance of industrial growth in this county. I think it's absolutely necessary. And I do think that we should be doing that. However, AI companies have proven time and time again that they are untrustworthy and they do not care about anyone but themselves. You can look at just OpenAI as one example. They have multiple lawsuits against copyright infringement. And they even had a whistleblower come out and say that they're infringing upon the copyright law. And then he died 1 month later. And, we as a county, we have principles and we are part of the state of Florida. And allowing these companies into our state is a reflection of what we believe, and we should not allow it. Eventually, AI will have a place in this economy. It's completely unavoidable. But we should also wait until it's stable. This is a very dynamic and very unique industry. Every week there's a new development. And, right now they say that they can circulate the water and that they can keep, 100,000, 200,000 gallons of water and just use that. But what happens next year when they have some sort of new AI that requires 10 times as much water to keep running safely? And they already have that foothold in our county. These are the kinds of things that we have to deal with. And when you're approaching something so new and so unpredictable, I think it would be better for us to wait and to analyze our options and wait for this industry to settle itself more so that when we begin our infrastructure and our economy that bases around it, we don't have to worry about the unpredictability factor. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
afternoon. My name is Amy Campbell. I'm in Ozella, Florida, 2374 South Ripple Path, Crystal River. And I also, as some others, have asked for a rejection rather than a postponement. If you feel, and the discussions amongst yourselves seem to have some concerns, if there are enough holes in this, then maybe save everyone time. So you've all certainly put in a lot of time today, and just, reject it. So I'm coming at this from the point of view of jobs. There would be construction jobs, of course, to create the facility, but only a handful after that if it works like the hundreds of data centers that I have worked with. I've worked the past 18 years supporting enterprise data storage systems housed in data centers, which is very common. And in my experience, most of the jobs for the data centers go to India. It's offshored, and this has been like 90%. All the administration, of the equipment, all the systems that are in there is typically done by India. If there's a problem, I would go try to figure out what the problem is, and then I would send, ship a part, and then have some field engineer usually they're like 30 to 60 minutes away. They don't live in the town where the data center is. So they'd go. So really there would be very few jobs created except for security guards. That has been my experience. The field engineers would have trouble getting in because there's nobody in the data center, So I just wanted to add that substantial jobs, $90,000 jobs, maybe. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Samantha Osteen. I live at 2168 East Shales Court in Hernando. I am directly south of that bottom little property line before the little triangle at the bottom. I own almost 5 acres of land right there, and I bought actually almost 3 acres of land to prevent anything else being built right in front of my house, but I can't afford 1,300 acres. However, I would like to discuss this, obviously, but I would like to specifically talk about the planning and on consistency and compatibility. The comprehensive plan requires that amendments to the future land use map promote orderly growth and ensure compatibility between adjacent land uses. Heavy industrial is the highest intensity designation available. It permits manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, processing, outdoor storage, utility scale infrastructure, and 24-hour operations. The established land use pattern surrounding that site includes all of the residential, low, medium, high, and rural residential designations. That pattern reflects a residential corridor, not an industrial one. Introducing 1,300 plus acres of heavy industrial into a predominantly residential framework creates a significant compatibility concern. Compatibility is not addressed solely through minimal buffering. A 75-foot natural buffer does not meaningfully mitigate industrial scale lighting, operational noise, truck traffic, and potential infrastructure expansion. In addition, this amendment is being requested without defined and binding development plan, as everybody else has discussed. The board is being asked to grant open-ended heavy industrial entitlement across a large tract without specific limitations tied to the site plan or development agreement. From a policy standpoint, that reduces predictability and weakens long-term planning consistency. Infrastructure concurrency must also be considered. Heavy industrial intensity can require substantial roadway capacity, electrical infrastructure upgrades, stormwater system, and fire suppression capabilities. The surrounding community relies primarily on wells and septics, drawing from the Florida aquifer system. The board should carefully evaluate aquifer protection, groundwater monitoring, and long-term environmental safeguards before altering the flume map. Finally, a flume amendment is a permanent policy decision. Once the designation changes to heavy industrial, the long-term development trajectory of this corridor changes with it. The question before you is whether this amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan's compatibility requirements and the established residential land use pattern. Based on the intensity of the heavy industrial category and its adjacency to residential designations, I respectfully submit that it is not, and for these reasons, I ask for you to deny this proposed amendment. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, I'm Sandra Slowey. I live at 7216 North Paradise Point, Hernando. I actually live directly across 491, and I live in the cul-de-sac on that road. I enjoy sitting outside in my yard in the afternoons, and all I hear are birds and the animals. I previously lived in Pennsylvania. I lived in the country up there, and that was one of the reasons I moved to Citrus County, because it was more rural than some of the other areas south of there. I do have friends who live in Pennsylvania where there were data centers built, and some of their concerns is what's concerning me now. I sleep with my windows open at night, like I have the past several nights, and I'm very concerned about the noise and the humming, because the two things that my friends up north had told me is, one, their electric bills went through the roof, and the second is the noise, the humming, the constant humming. And they said they notice the difference of the humming in the winter versus summer, so I won't have a problem with snow. So we'll just have the one noise of humming, and that's what I'm afraid of, is the humming, because I do like to sit outside. I enjoy hearing the animals, hearing the birds, and I do enjoy sleeping with my windows open. I know some suggestions were using, a noise machine and this and that. I can't see doing that when I have nature that could put me asleep instead. I just want to thank you for your time.
David Rowland, East Bluebird Court, Hernando. My rhetorical question would be, why are we even considering 1,300 acres of heavy industry in Citrus County? We're part of the Nature Coast. People come here for outdoor life. The golf, the lakes, the golf courses, the bike trails. It makes no sense. I hear from the chamber over here that, well, we need to increase industry. We need to increase job opportunities. True. But that can be accomplished by the light industry that it was originally proposed for. So why would we even consider heavy industry with all the questions that remain? We got no answers today, just more questions. So why would we even consider moving forward with heavy industry with the potential negative impacts that it'll have to our community? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Baldwin. I live in 4096 North Monadnock Road in Hernando. I am in favor of industrial development in Citrus County. I am strongly against a data center. I have a number of concerns. The first one is water, and no one to date has yet discussed anything about prioritizing availability of the water to the citizens of Citrus County. Should we have a lowering of our water table, we need to have precedence, and we need to be guaranteed that we will get the water first before any other development gets the water. Secondly, you have spoken about the area south of the development and east of the development. No one has mentioned west of the development. You have hundreds of families that live west of that development. They will be exposed to that low hum that everybody keeps talking about. They are within a 3-mile area of that development, and you will be exposing your citizens of Citrus County to major health problems should that data center be put in place. You have to remember that with the data center, they have generators that run 24/7. They produce noise, and that noise goes for long distances. And the people in this community will be directly affected by them. I thank you for listening to us today. I would hope that you would not approve this particular application. In lieu of that, if you've got to do something, Ms. Cotu had pointed out, at least wait and see what the government is doing in Tallahassee, because right now, several of those bills that are being proposed would basically prohibit some of the development in this application. Again, thank you all for listening to us today.
Hi, my name is Thomas Osteen. I live at 2168 East Shales Court. Duke told me if I changed out my windows that my electric bill would be a lot cheaper. So spent $30,000 to a big bay window which overlooks that pasture. Me and my wife moved up here 15 years ago from Pasco, trying to outrun progress. I know you never will, but I'm not against jobs. It's about location. Like, there's a reason why you pass Black Diamond and never see Habitat for Humanity homes going in Black Diamond or Citrus Hills. Like, there's certain locations that need to be kept rural, kept city. You know, Walmart's next to Target, Lowe's is next to Home Depot. Like, I don't want my house next to anything industrial, because that's not what my American dream was. Thank you.
I've got a letter on file for Sierra Club Adventure Coast. My name is Robin Orlandi. I live in Dunellen. Thank you for your patience today. This is a big project and a lot of listening, and we appreciate that. I would like to request that you deny the application on the basis of insufficient evidence of their intention. You don't have enough information to make a decision to approve. Capacity for water. I have some additional data that I want to add to the conversation with that. And also the intensity of use. They're requesting to more than double the footprint of the already approved industrial park, but without any planning there. And if, to our way of thinking, if their intentions were to support the community and to provide safeguards for the surrounding residents, why are they pushing this forward instead of waiting for the definition in the Land Development Code for data centers to be completed, waiting for the state to come up with their safeguards? There's a reason that this is being expedited. More specifically, water sufficiency, reclamation and reuse, they're inadequately addressed. Big industrial site, whether it's a data center or other industry, is going to use a lot of water, 100 million gallons a day. Even though we can sustain those kind of volumes historically, we're not living 25 years ago. We're living now. This data center proliferation is happening across Florida. Citrus is one of about 16 counties looking at these centers. So if you don't approve this now, there won't be a shortage of applicants in the future. I don't think you're going to worry about that. But more specifically, in terms of water, the Withlacoochee Regional Water Supply Authority has already identified a water supply gap for Citrus County by 2035. I can share the document here. These are in hundred thousands of gallons per day. And the deficit continues. Some of the suggested remediations are to use surface water, like from the Withlacoochee River, from Lake Rousseau, to use reclaimed water to meet the demand. Most importantly for this project is that in Holder, a longer-term priority to go past 2035 to 2040 is the Holder Regional Surface Water Facility. That's only a 10 million gallon a day plant to meet the need in that area, but its cost is $555 million. It is part of the suite of answers being proposed to meet water demand in this county. As we know, we're already in a water deficit. We've got an overload of approved applications as well as whatever may be pending, and nobody is counting the numbers for how much water that's going to use. So adding this kind of an intense use without any safeguards in place just seems illogical. They're saying, yes, we're going to use closed loop data center systems. Those closed loop systems are in development, but there are no guarantees. They also require management of chemicals, the risk of spills and of other environmental impacts. It's new technology, it's unclear, so it's a gamble at best. I would suggest, get more information, hold the developer to more strict and stringent requirements, and either delay this or deny it. There's better uses for the Holder Industrial Park than data centers, and the noise and the other environmental factors such as hurricanes, tornadoes, all the things that we've experienced, the response to that in this area, that there is no environmental impact plans, no emergency response plans in this application, and those are things that will have to be dealt with. I think that covers most of what I had to say. One other we heard a lot about the highest and best use of land too. Yes, we need economic development. Yes, we need industry to help build the tax base. I've been in those meetings. But we have to remember that the highest and best land use is the thing that guarantees our quality of life, the cleanliness of our water, which has been identified throughout the community in the recent comp planning and the green planning public surveys. More than 2,000 people said their first priority in this county is clean water, conservation of natural resources. Those are the things that are the highest and best use of the land. The economy should serve those goals. Those goals should not be subservient to industry or the economy. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Margaret Odell, 1372 East Winnetka Street, Hernando. Apparently, I'm going to get impacted pretty hard by this whole development you're proposing. I'm just south of Overdrive in that development. I'm already told there's not enough water for the area. My energy bill keeps going up, and I try like heck to keep my usage down. I get a letter saying, oh, don't use so much energy. Okay, I pretty much live in the dark now. What else am I supposed to do? You don't have enough water to support the development that's being talked about. You don't have enough electric to support the development that's being talked about. Who's going to pay for the electric expansion? So far, it looks like it's me. As for water, okay, great. You dry up my well. You promise me city water. Where's that water going to come from? Because it's coming from the same aquifer that I'm getting my water out of now. You don't have proper road infrastructure to be able to handle this. There's 200 acres on there that I'm told is unbuildable. Why is it even in that map? You have a hideously insufficient application. I don't even know why it's being entertained at this point. They can't provide you any of the information needed to answer any of the questions. In my book, they're lying about all of it. They're obviously going to push for, oh, well, you know, we can work with this when. I don't sign a contract for anything that I haven't read that doesn't have all the details in it. If they can't provide the details, they're doing bait and switch. Nobody in the neighborhood around me wants to see their wells dry, be forced to city water, which isn't even guaranteed to get because, hey, it's the same aquifer again. The traffic is bad enough. What are you going to do about that? And to just have carte blanche of, here's 813 acres of unknown development, proposed hideous noise level, the lower frequency noises, it's a bad idea, and we really want you to turn it down. If they can't come here with at least most of the answers to the questions before they even put the application in, they're doing a bait and switch. There are other facilities out there that they could get these numbers from to give us some kind of a clue to work with. And for some place that's hot most of the year, why are they building something that needs to be cooled in this kind of a climate? It belongs in a cooler climate.
Good afternoon. I'm Don Taylor, and for a change, I'm not representing any organization. I was the Economic Development Director back in 2014 when we started working on the Holder Park. And it was a public-private partnership back then, so I wasn't really working directly for the county. And we found that Citrus County did not have any large tracts of land that had the potential to attract companies for high-paying jobs. And it was noted that the Holder Industrial Park could fill that gap. We chose the 550 acres that was cleared to start the rezoning process with the intent of potentially rezoning the additional 800 acres to attract a potential prospect requiring the additional acres. As was mentioned, 550 acres was rezoned in 2019, and Joanna and I spent a lot of quality time on that, but somehow we both survived because we're both here today. It was also mentioned that Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental studies were done on this property. And I just wanted to clarify that those environmental studies were done on all the acreage. It wasn't just on the 550 acres. And there wasn't any significant findings that came out of that. We had geotechnical core bores done. There was about 25, again, across the 1,300 acres. No major findings there. It even got into doing ground penetrating radar up around the old farmhouse buildings up on top of the hill to look for any buried tanks. So it was very extensive, and there weren't any significant findings that came out of any of those environmental studies. Potable and wastewater services has been ongoing opportunity for Holder, and now that has been resolved, as you heard earlier. And I wanted to mention, previously I involved with an inquiry by a data center. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that today, that is no longer interested in the site, but in that process we provided a lot of analysis to that prospect, and one of which was Duke Energy, that said they had the capacity to provide existing power without any expansion at this point to that data center. So I just wanted to make that point. I know there's been a lot of talk about the water. And I just wanted to also mention that Josh mentioned that this isn't the end. There's a lot of permits that have to be done. Just like the 550 acres that was put in before, there's a lot of things that have to be done to move this forward. So I request that you move this forward and vote for it today to move it on to the BOCC for future consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to assume that if there was anyone left that wanted to speak, they would be in line. So I'm not going to ask if there's anyone else. We know there's no one upstairs, correct? Okay, so it's 1:35. I'm going to say this real quickly. We're going to take a real quick 5-minute break before we do the applicant's rebuttal.
One lady that testified.
Yeah. No.
They haven't played a lot. They did sweep Miami. They played. No, you don't have any problems.
Okay.
Lost one game. They only lost one game to Stetson.
My wife yells at me all the time. All the time.
Ton of transfers. She watches out for you.
Okay.
All right, I gave you guys 2 extra minutes.
Agreed.
All right, the public portion of the hearing is now closed. Rebuttal from the applicant.
We flipped the coin on rebuttal and I lost. And I'll be brief, okay? The compatibility issues that have been raised by the abutters are real. They were real in 2019, and they were very similar. In 2019, this board approved 550 acres with those concerns being out there, and they haven't changed, and the Board of County Commissioners approved them. So, you know, that's what we call res judicata, finding of fact, or whatever. Now, there was a lot of discussion about pending legislation. It's quite clear that whatever is said and done by you or the Board of County Commissioners, this applicant's going to be bound by that. And within the framework of those bills, you heard there's this discussion about a guardrail for water. There's a discussion about a guardrail for noise. There's setbacks, and there's discussion about electrical demand. So all of those will be in place by July 1. So it's not like they're not being ignored. okay, and we'll be bound by them. I want to talk a little bit about the water use and how it works, because there's this perception, if you will, that this whole park is going to be satisfied with what we would call potable water, water from the county system. So the way it works is in Chapter 102 of your county code, it mandates if you do a building, structure, house, industrial, commercial, you're required to tie in for water from the county. And that's a state policy, and it's carried over to the comp plan. And it says the term building. Now, it's not defined in Chapter 102. If you go to the Citrus County Land Development Code, you look and you'll find a definition of building, and it requires human occupancy. So in the case of any industrial use, and in the case of a data center, where those people are working, they're going to have county water, just like any other industrial building would have. Those cooler systems, that closed loop system we talked about, in a different structure, in a different building, without human occupancy, would not be required to be served by the county. They would get a consumptive use permit, and they would get that consumptive use permit through the Water Management District, and the Water Management District would apply standards that are, as Joanna alluded to, designed to set guardrails, protections in place. So the other thing that I took away from all the opposition was I don't think they've read the existing Holder Industrial Park text, and it hasn't changed. Yes, Tier 2 is the heavier industrial, but you have to go further and read. There's over 27 items, maybe 22 or 3, of industrial uses that are prohibited. So you say, yes, we're going to go to industrial, and we don't want heavy industrial. Well, you have to read the whole document. It's heavy industrial, less and except all the things that would cause adverse offsite impacts. And we did that in 2017 intentionally, because that was the reason it got denied the first time around. And we kept those prohibited uses still in there. So the idea was, as Don Taylor spoke to, create this upscale Class A type industrial park, one of the largest in West Central Florida, and we would go forward with that. So, yeah, there's a tremendous amount of moving parts. We would like to move this on to the Board of County Commissioners. You know, we do not and will not ask for a continuance. Let's state that right up front. We'd rather have you deny it and state your reasons, and then we'll address those reasons. But the fact of the matter is, you have an economic development policy, and it's ignored in the staff report. Ava spoke to it, and we meet those standards. And we will have in place the necessary guardrails by July 1st when this matter will come before the Board of County Commissioners. But I want to be clear, we need to move this on. Even if that's a denial, fine. Tell us why, and we'll correct those problems. And then we thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, we will close the public portion of the meeting and the rebuttal and bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Ms. Lynn?
Does anybody, do they have closing? We can't forget to allow them closing. I mean,
I'm sorry.
usually the rebuttal and the closing are together, but
That was it? One shot? You got one shot. All right, perfect.
thank you.
Thank you. With that said, Mr. Barmez?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. You know, we're being asked to approve a maximum intensity of use with a minimal amount of information that shifts all the risk to the public, while the developer retains the flexibility. Our responsibility without a known end user, we cannot exactly evaluate properly. My motion to continue is based on I'm not in favor of this application as the way it's written. I am in favor of giving opportunities to correct issues. The issue is you don't hand a 16-year-old a check with no dollar amount on it because they're going to do whatever they want to do. And by if we were to approve this application, we'd be letting the developers do whatever they want to do. And Madam Attorney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the state legislation, if it's passed, and this application is passed prior, it would not affect, new state legislation will not affect this application.
I haven't studied that issue, but I did write in my notes that Mr. Stillwell said they would be bound by the legislation, but I haven't studied the issue.
I make a motion to continue this application to provide the staff, the applicant, and any other public the time necessary to complete the record to ensure whatever decision we ultimately make is defensible, transparent, and is in the best interest of our Citrus County and our Citrus County residents. And I'll make that motion to continue for both applications.
Before we have a second, Mr. Barmes, the applicant you heard would prefer
I'm sorry.
no discussion?
Not until there's a second.
Okay.
I'll second just for the discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Mr. Barmes, we heard from the applicant. They would prefer an approval or a denial. At this moment, I would prefer that this board give a firm answer. We either approve or deny. I think that we should move this meeting along, let them decide what they want to do. As far as a continuance, I think that based on the information that we have and based on what you've told me, I feel like we have enough information for me to make a motion for denial, and I would be the first. I'm just telling you that out front right now. I'll give my reasons later. I was talking to you with your motion that you've already put on the table.
I believe a continuance is in order, Mr. Chair, because the applicant comes to us with an incomplete application. Out of respect to any other applications that come with us with a blank check or whatever they want to do, we gave them consideration. I just feel that the applicant, Citrus County, and our Citrus County residents deserve a full-fledged application, not one that's in favor for them. And a denial will kick the can to the BOCC, but it doesn't solve any of our legislation or constitutional rights that we have with our comprehensive plan.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair. Oh, go ahead, please. Go ahead. No.
Mr. Scherer?
Well,
point of order, Denise, I have been practicing before you for years, and you have always told this board the applicant can ask for a continuance, and then the board can count on it. If the applicant doesn't want a continuance, then this board, I don't think, has the authority to go and continue it. That has been the policy of this board for years. Am I wrong in that?
I was asked this question before this meeting, and I did the research, and I would refer you to Section 2-58 of the Citrus County Code, which talks about continuances and deferrals. So it is within their purview to continue it.
So all those prior applications, where you said the applicant had to agree to the continuance, you were wrong?
I could have been wrong. I'm not afraid to admit it if I'm wrong, but I was asked, and I did look at that.
Mr. Scherer?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Facemeyer.
Mr. Facemeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's important that we tap the brakes here a little bit, slow down the process. There was a substantial number of very valid questions raised by the public and the board, but I think the leading issue is the pending legislation. We don't know when that will be enacted, when the effective date would be. We don't know what it's going to say. It may make all these questions go away. It may raise more questions. And until we know what that legislation might be, I'm prepared to vote to continue.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I've listened closely to the discussion, obviously, and although I can agree at a high level that the county is woefully underserved in its relationship of industrial versus residential and some of the long-term goals that the Board of County Commissioners have articulated and passed on, the burden of proof really today is on the developer to provide the required information in sufficient detail to allow the PDC to make a decision to recommend or not, and then to the BOCC for a final decision. You know, it's important mostly for the public. Today's hearing, we're not voting on the acceptability of a data center. That's not even on the table. We're voting on the modifications to the comprehensive plan rezoning and extending or expanding the public service area. And our vote is strictly on the information that has been presented in this application. Having said that, you know, we don't check our brains at the door and forget all our common sense. With that, I think there's too many things in play here. If we vote no, the applicant hasn't resolved the issues related to sufficient data, sufficient detail, and it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, which then have to take up the same issues again. If nothing else, the PDC is providing completed staff work for the Board of County Commissioners and asking the appropriate questions and requiring the applicant to provide the right information. We've done that in the last 2 years since I've been here. So where I'm going to stand on this is I think we need to tap the brakes. I do support a continuance or continue the application. Subject to this, look, we need resolution and clarification of federal and state legislation. We need the Board of County Commissioners' direction to the staff to develop the standards to the LDC pertaining to data centers. The developer themselves needs to amend its application to include the intended use and resource requirements, the location of the proposed facilities within the proposed Holder expansion, and transparency. Lastly, the developer, I would request that the developer publicly commit to participate in and support both a PDC and BOCC public review and approval of the industrial applications. So I will support the continuance.
Mr. Bozeman.
I've been sitting here listening to an awful lot of good comments back and forth, pro, against, emotion from residents. And as much as I would like to just rip the Band-Aid off and have a decision made, I think I'm going to have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Shera, and his comments and the other comments regarding a continuance, although that would not be preferable for the, as they've clearly stated, not the desire of the applicant. However, I think it might be in best interest to allow the legislation play out at the state and federal level so that we have better information on which to base a good decision, not an emotional decision or a half-baked decision. Therefore, I would support the continuance.
Ms. Murphy?
Well, I kind of disagree with all of you. I think that that is a huge piece of land to dedicate to heavy industrial when it's surrounded by residences and rural areas. I just feel like it's just far too big, whether they get the data center or not. If it's just heavy industrial surrounded by residences and rural stuff, I think it should be denied.
Ms. Gilbert, Mr. Gilbert, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's
okay.
2 o'clock, bro.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm kind of torn because I'm kind of settled on, or I'm not settled, but I see where the continuance is coming from because I wrote in my notes multiple times, quote, potential, quote, conceptual, quote, this is a plan, quote, this is not final, quote, we are not tied to a design. And these are all comments by the applicant. So I understand where you guys are coming from with the continuance for the not a complete application. And I'm also in agreement with the no, because I don't think a data center should go there either. But I know we're not voting on a data center today. We're voting on, like you said, the intensity of it. Yeah, I can see myself going either way. So I'll love to see how this vote comes out.
Okay, so that leaves me. I already sort of alluded to where I'm at with this particular application. I'm not in favor of a continuance. Nothing that these gentlemen could bring in front of me will change my decision to take a piece of property that has a low-density residential zoning, which is one of our least intense uses in the entire land development code, to rezone it to industrial. I don't care what kind of brakes or guardrails that they have on it. One of the public input was that it wasn't the most beautiful piece of property. I would like to respectfully disagree. As a lifelong Citrus County resident, I have spent a lot of time over there. We call it Tanglewood. I've rode motorcycles and four-wheelers and everything. There's some of the most beautiful specimen trees that I have ever seen on those pieces of property over there. This particular area of the county is just sort of special. I have a project going on over there in Hernando right now. You drive around over there, it just feels different. The reason it feels different is because it's a wooded rural parcel. I don't care how many warehouses they're going to put in or not put in, whether it's a data center or not. I do not support the rezoning of that property from anything other than the residential. And if somebody came in front of us that said they had a PUD and they wanted to upzone just the low density residential portion of it, I would probably be against that too. I think that this is the nature coast. We need to keep the nature in the nature coast. And there's areas and particular pieces of property that are just sensitive to pressures, outside pressures. We've got developments all over this entire county, and that little section of the county, it's almost like a little slice of heaven over there. It's just different. The whole entire feel of the town of Hernando is just different than Crystal River, Homosassa, Lecanto, Inverness, any of these. Some of the notes I took, these gentlemen that are here presenting, these are not bad people. They're just doing a job, just like we're up here doing a job. Mr. Wooten and everything, 100%, we need economic development. I understand that we need economic development, but industrial economic development, in my opinion, doesn't belong in Citrus County. We gave them almost 600 acres of industrial development that's adjacent to this particular property. Nothing has happened yet. We have Overdrive Circle that's industrial. It's been zoned industrial, high-intense industrial for a very long time. It's still got vacant parcels in it that hasn't been developed. I'm not willing to trade the green that you see on that map for the green that we put in our wallets. And I understand that it's not just the developer that's going to get that green. It would be all of us. I understand that dynamic. But to me, it's not enough. I don't really care about the money. I would rather preserve the nature coast. So with that said, we will take a vote on the continuance that's on the table. And I'm pretty sure we will need take a roll call with it, please. So all in favor of the continuance, say aye.
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 All against, say nay.
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 All right, we're gonna start with the chair, Mr. Bramblett,
Nay.
and then we have got Mr. Facemeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Barmes,
Yes.
Mr. Bozeman,
Yes.
Mr. Shara,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert,
Nay.
and Miss Murphy.
Nay.
And we have, the yeses are 4, the nos are 3.
Yes. The continuance has passed. Any other discussions by the board?
Your next hearing on March 19th, you have 2 applications, then a warning again for April. 4 applications on your first meeting with a very large new land use district and the asphalt plant that's been in the paper on the second meeting. So April will be a long one.
Second meeting in April.
Second meeting in April is asphalt, but the first one is 4 applications, including a new land use district. So that one is pretty intense as well.
What is the second, what's the date?
4/16. Mr. Landon, did you have anything? to
Mr.
address?
Landon, I had your name on here. You don't want to talk about the Florida Wildlife Corridor and all that great information that we dealt with yesterday? I was definitely going to talk about it. So I spent longer than yesterday, at a Florida Wildlife Corridor meeting. I had no With that, it's 2:06. With that, it's 2:06. You guys, I think this might be the longest meeting that we've had. I know it's the most restroom breaks ever. So thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate the public saving everything. And with that, let's go home.
And if you have turned in a notice or a letter to me and have acknowledged your email, you don't have to send it again. I got it. Okay?